Hello, and welcome back to the Tea and Soju C-Drama podcast, your safe spot for C-Drama chatter. I'm your host, Liliana, and it's time to sit back, grab your tea, and let's chat Asian dramas. In today's episode, we are going to be reviewing the Chinese drama Unveil Jadewind with guest Mona. But before we get into the episode, just some housekeeping. If you like the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe on the platform you listen on. That really helps the podcast reach other listeners. For more content, check out Patreon, where you can find behind the scenes, first impressions, Zoom meetups, and more. Finally, if you would like to chat to me or find a community, check out Discord, Instagram, and other socials. The link is in the episode notes. So we have a brand new guest, and I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Marina from the Crazy Comfort Club. I'm a TV journalist and a researcher in the TV and film space. I love talking and learning about all types of media and different dramas. Typically, I cover Chinese language and Korean dramas. The Cozy Comfort Club is an outlet for me to talk about different dramas and my own little cozy corner of the internet. I also do a monthly film club where we talk about different dramas that we've watched in that month and what we're going to be looking forward to the following month.
Yeah, so I came across one of your videos, and I think it's because I think either Chi or Viv, one of them, like must have shared, like must have crossed our feeds, because I've had both of them guest on the podcast before,
Mm.
and this is how most of my guests come about, is because like we'll cross feeds on TikTok, and it's like
Yeah,
I'll reach out. But I, first of all, I love your name on TikTok because, like, it just sounds cozy. I mean, there's not another word to put it. It
thank
just
you.
sounds cozy. Um, but yeah, I like to ask guests whenever it's their first time on the podcast, just what was your gateway drama and how did you find your way into Asian dramas?
So this is a really hard question for me because
Mm-hmm.
I have always kind of been around foreign language media anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of Asian dramas, my friend has been badgering me for years to kind of get into Korean dramas. And I was like, oh, yeah, whatever, I'll get into it eventually. And I think the one I remember watching isn't even a Korean drama, it's a Taiwanese drama called Child
Mm-hmm.
Princess back in 2019. It's a
Oh my,
Taiwanese drama. Yeah.
I remember that drama. I
Yeah.
remember that drama.
And it's not even like a really good drama either to remember.
No, no, it's really not.
Um, like it's about the daughter of a gang leader who takes like an undercover gig to be a bodyguard,
Hmm.
and then I got reintroduced to Korean dramas after because Netflix will repopulate your feed after you
Hmm.
kind of engage
Hmm.
with some content. So I watched The Business Proposal and Hometown Cha Cha Cha, and then once I finally drained like the Netflix dubbed category, I found
Hmm.
myself to like love and miss the Snowstorm and the Princess
Oh,
Royal and
yeah.
a whole ton of different Chinese, Taiwanese, Korean, Japanese
Hmm.
dramas. Just because the kind of storytelling kind of favors like longer episodes and as like a slower storytelling, and despite each country being very different in terms of like culture and language and different aspects, it still favors that kind of slow emotional connection, which I really enjoy.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's kind of been my gateway. It's not been a particular drama, it's been a multitude of dramas and kind of falling into this chaotic and amazing space of foreign language content.
Oh, I agree. I think like Netflix is to blame for a lot of like watchers in recent
Mm,
years. Like I have friends who started watching Asian dramas, K-dramas, Chinese dramas like 20 years ago, and
yeah.
they found them on like YouTube broken up into
Yeah.
like 10-minute episode, like 10
Yeah, and that's
minutes.
what I would watch as well. Like my friend would send me stuff through YouTube because back
Hmm.
then we used to use YouTube as if it was more social media rather than it being like just a video sharing platform. And we would sit and we'd watch like one drama in 10 to 25 different parts. And we'd be like,
Hmm.
this is
Hmm.
so interesting. And we'd not understand like anything because obviously by the time that you get to the next clip, it doesn't actually really make sense because there's a whole chunk that's been missing. But you're still like,
Yeah.
I need to see that. So what's going on now? And we're kind of seeing a resurgence of that with those short dramas. where
Mm-hmm.
you'll see like an ad for it and you're like, I don't know what's going on, but I've sat here for 10 minutes watching this ad.
Oh my God, yes. They'll come up on TikTok and I'm like, I don't, this is the tropiest thing. It's really not that good, but here I am, like transfixed for 10 minutes or whatever it is. And now, do I really want to go watch the rest? Probably not, but I'm intrigued.
So you
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that, but I literally went and searched on YouTube for these titles. So I'm like, I need
Did
to know what
you?
happens next. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're like an hour long. And what you see is like probably 25 minutes in and
Mm-hmm.
like a small context of it. But when you kind of zoom out, you're still like, I don't know what I'm watching right now. The story makes no sense, but I'm so here for it.
Yes, yes. No, no, I agree. I agree. But yeah, many people nowadays have found their way into dramas. And the thing is, Netflix is so good. However many problems I may have with Netflix, and
Mm,
there are many. One of the things is their algorithm is one of the best in terms of like suggesting things for you. They really cater like it's the same thing with like TikTok and social media. They really
mm.
cater to you personally, don't they? And I think that really helps people kind of find their way around that initial way into Asian
Yeah.
dramas in general. But business proposals are really I loved business proposal. I really did. It was so much fun. It was so tropey, but it was so
It's
much
such a
fun.
it's such a typical drama as well for most people to get into as well. And I
Hmm,
find it so
hmm,
interesting because what my job is as a content researcher anyway, is to kind of find out what TV shows people are kind of mentioning and why they
hmm.
want it. So sometimes I'll be in these conversations and they're like, yeah, we want authentic storytelling. We want all these things, and they'll have the most tropiest drama that they could have ever picked. I'm like, how is this authentic and how is this real? Because no one lives this life, but
Hmm.
I'm here for it and I'm gonna watch every single episode and eat every single episode up. But it's just such an interesting conversation, and Netflix in particular is such it's like the dramas are either really good or really terrible, but you're not gonna really complain because you're still gonna click and watch the next episode. And because
Yeah.
they do a lot of the kind of like binging high style content, you really will watch everything and you kind of fall into that trap in the best way. I think
Hmm.
once you watch one really good Chinese drama or Asian drama in general, you will tend to keep going.
Yeah, that is very true. I think, like, so for me, I've been watching for, I don't know, 9 years almost.
Mm.
Yeah, 8 years, 8 years, 8 years now. 7, 8 years. And I started because Netflix did suggest a drama to me, and I clicked play, and it was a fantasy Chinese drama. And I am a fantasy girly through and through. Like, I love reading fantasy. So that spoke to me, and I was so fascinated by it all. I was like, oh my God, I've never seen this before. The fact that it's one season done and I don't have to wait, or fear that it's going to get cancelled or anything like that. I love the fact that sometimes it takes 10 episodes for them to even just hold hands, let alone do anything else, because it's like it really does build that emotional connection, and I think that was severely lacking in western shows anyways.
Absolutely.
So that spoke to me, and I think the more I watched, like, because in the beginning, everything I watched was like, oh, it's new, it's shiny, it's
Mm.
exciting. Nowadays, I'm not that way anymore. Like nothing is that
Yeah.
new and shiny anymore. Like everything kind of wears off a little bit. And although
Yeah.
I still love watching Asian dramas, I think I'm just way more picky about what I choose
Yeah.
to pick up, what I choose to watch. I'm very quick to drop things that I'm not enjoying, so it's
Mm.
always fascinating. You kind of like, evolve. The more you watch, the more you end up evolving as well, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think one of the videos you would have been tagged in for my account would have been ask your faves like what's their favorite dramas.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
was I think
Yes.
it might have been like a recommendation video because it got to the point where I realized I was watching the same dramas, the same style of dramas. I wasn't stepping out of my niche, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
a romance girly through and through. I will watch
Mm-hmm.
anything
Mm-hmm.
romance, but I will never kind of step outside of that romance bubble and kind of put myself in different even archetypes. Like I had never seen a fancier until earlier this year
Mm-hmm.
or last year. So you think I really hear what you say when you're talking about, it being really shiny and really new. And I think
Mm-hmm.
when I stepped into watching more K-dramas, more C-dramas, more J-dramas, I kind of had to force myself out into this new bubble and
Mm-hmm.
to kind of enjoy different styles of content because I don't think I would have ever watched Prisoner of Beauty by myself.
But it's so good. It's so good. And I
And it
think
is really
also,
good, and I'm so happy
yeah,
I did.
the thing is with like, so for me, for example, even just like my personal taste has changed
Mhm.
completely. Like if you go 5, 6 years ago, I was a modern drama girly through and through. That's what I watched. Like fluffy rom-coms, modern
Mhm.
dramas. That's what I loved. Nowadays, oh, I'm like, I love historicals. I give me all, because I feel like I do love romance, and I think historicals just have, and xianxas and whatnot, just have these very epic romance stories
Mm,
that aren't as easy to convey in modern dramas. So
yeah,
I always tend to gravitate more towards historical dramas nowadays than I used to, and that's just something that has changed, and I don't think it would have happened if I had just watched Western dramas.
yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
true.
it's
I
yeah.
think for me, like Western dramas is basically all like we see on our TVs. Really, really, we don't in England
Mhm.
anyway. We don't really get a chance to kind of branch out and see different cultures and different
Mhm.
countries' way of storytelling. And then
Mhm.
the first historical drama I watched was The Princess Royal, and that
That's a
has
good
been
one.
like my favorite
Mhm.
historical drama still to this day that I go on about because, as you said, historical dramas have these like whirlwind romances, and it's really hard, really easy, I think, to convey that kind of style of romance compared to a
Mhm.
modern one. Because in a modern one, the stakes aren't that high. We're in the
Mhm.
modern world.
Exactly.
You're gonna have to rely on so many different tropes like miscommunication, childhood connections, the truck of doom, to kind of
God.
power through and tell that story. So I think it's really interesting as well that with this kind of like historical lens and even with this drama Unveil Jadewind, it's set in the Tang Dynasty. It's not forward romance. It's romance is still there. Like we haven't strayed too far out of our niches, but
Mhm.
it's the subplot and we have these kind of chaotic cases as like our front and center and that we're kind of steaming towards each episode.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that is actually a perfect segue into getting into our review. So, the MDL description for this reads: During the Lantern Festival, Princess Ningyuan dies mysteriously at the night banquet. Li Peiyi, Princess of Funchang County, and Xiao Huajin, Deputy Director of the Astronomical Bureau, are ordered to investigate. Cold on the outside but kind at heart, Peiyi reads people fast and fights even faster. Hua Jin is meticulous with a razor sharp memory. Working in sync, they follow threads through arrogant nobles and an Imperial Guard commander, hiding secrets, cracking the case, and unmasking the killer. More eerie palace mysteries soon follow, each tied to the fates of women in the inner court. As they chase the truth deeper into the Tang Palace, they also uncover what really happened behind Peiyi's family massacre 15 years ago and the mastermind's plot. So, this was adapted from the web novel The Blood Jade Ring, A Mysterious Case in the Tang Palace by Sen Lin Lu. It is 34 episodes of 45 minutes. It was filmed from the 26th of November 2024 to the 12th of April 2025. So just under a year from completion of filming to release, which is actually pretty good. It aired from February 5th, 2026 to the 22nd of February 2026. It's currently sitting at an 8.2 on MDL, and so far it does not have a Douban rating yet. I don't know. Do you know what Douban is? An
No,
MDL?
I know what MDL is, but I'll let you explain.
So yeah, so people that like MDL is just basically a logging place for dramas, and Douban is basically the same but is the Chinese equivalent, and they often not fight each other, but they often disagree. Like ratings in China tend to be a lot lower than they do
Mm.
in the West. So yeah, so this can be watched on Yoku and on Netflix. The director for this is Yin Chao. He has been directing since 2015, and he's directed things such as Love and Redemption from 2020, Who Rules the World from 2022, and Blood River from 2025. This is a really good director. Like,
Mm.
his. I really, Blood River is just shot so beautifully. Love and Redemption is one of those xianxues where it is epic. It is long. It is, I think, 60 episodes. I watched it all the way back in 2020 while it was airing, actually. And it's one of those where they have lots of lifetimes and they
Mm.
keep like dying and finding each other again and dying and finding each other again. So very epic romance. But yeah, he is a good director. He has quite an eye for using colors and whatnot. So I really like him. For screenwriter, we have Mang Yang, and she's actually fairly new. So she's only been screenwriting since 2019, and she's done things such as the Lost Tomb series from the Lost Tomb from 2019, which is like a really big series. It's kind of like, people, please don't be offended by what I'm about to say, but it is similar to this, and it's very easy to describe it in this way. It's kind of like Indiana Jones, where they basically
Mm.
go and investigate stuff like that. So yeah, that's the Lost Tomb. And she also did Three Body from 2023, which I dropped. And the reason why I dropped is it is sci-fi heavy. And it was just like a lot of science. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't, my brain, no. My brain says
Goes
no.
right over the head.
Yeah, completely. But the Three Body is based on like a really big book, and that was adapted. It's also translated into English and everything. And Netflix has also done an adaptation, like an English adaptation of this.
Mm.
But unfortunately, it's just not my cup
Cup of
of
tea.
tea. Yeah,
No
it's
pun
just
intended.
not. Yeah, no pun intended. So this also has another screenwriter, and she's called Zhu Chin, and she's been screenwriting since 2017 and done things such as Monkey Stamps from 2017 and Eternal Brotherhood from 2025. So Eternal, I have not watched a lot from this screenwriter. Eternal Brotherhood is a wuxia drama from last year that starred Lu Yuning, who is the male lead from Prisoner of Beauty.
Yeah, I
So there you
think
go. It's
I've
one of his
watched
dramas.
one of like half an episode.
Yeah, I didn't go very far either. I have to be, if it's wuxia and that type of wuxia, I need to be in the right mood. And unfortunately, I
Yeah,
wasn't. So I
yeah,
kind of let
it's
it go.
very
I
tough.
was like, it's just not for me right now. So yeah. So as for cast, we have the wonderful Bai Lu, and
We
she's been
love
acting
her.
since 2017. People know that I'm a huge Bai Lu fan. Like,
Thought you were
hi.
gonna say that you didn't like her for a
Oh
second. Just like what?
no, 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 no. It's very well known that I'm a very big Bailu fan and have been
Mm.
for a long while. Like, I've pretty much watched everything she's been in. So like bar a drama or two, I've pretty much watched everything she's been in. So yeah, so she's been in things such as Love is Sweet from 2020 till the End of the Moon from 2023, which is epic, and I have reviewed it on the podcast. It's episode 30. So see about breaking dramas up, I've reviewed this, and it's episode 35, 36, and 37 on the podcast. So there you go. um Story of Crooning Palace from 2023, which I also reviewed. It's episode 64 of the podcast. And
On my to
Moonlight
watch
Mystique.
list,
Yeah.
which
Story
I
of
have
Crooning
seen.
Palace. Story of Crooning Palace is just so good. And it's like, it's Zhang Her as well. And he is the reddest of red flags. And
Yeah,
I always say I love a good red flag because I just find them very fascinating to watch. So there is that.
Yeah. No,
So
Story of Cunning Palace has got like the most star-studded cast I think I've seen in a long time. And it's on my watch list. I keep avoiding it and I need to stop avoiding it.
yeah,
Um,
it's so good. It's really good. I think you'll enjoy it because it's really
mm,
fascinating to watch, and I liked the story. I really really. You'll know I tend to enjoy a drama when I review it on the podcast because like if I didn't like it, I'm not gonna review it because it's just I don't want to be talking about something I didn't like for
which is
an
completely
hour.
fair.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is I
yeah,
think my third Biley project. I think my first
mm,
one was Only for Love. And the only reason why I got into Only for Love is because I saw again those like Chinese drama ads. Someone had
yeah.
ripped off the story and put it like with the
Oh,
AI voiceover.
yeah.
And it was like everyone's like, this is the same story as Only for Love. I don't know why they're using this. And I was like, what is
Mhm.
Only for Love? And then obviously I found this gem of an actress. So yeah.
Only for Love is, ugh, it is. I have reviewed it on the podcast. I had lots to say about that drama, but not all of it was positive, let's put it that way.
I understand.
Oh, so she also did Moonlight Mystique from 2025, and that is episode 116 of the podcast. Now, as for male lead, we have Wang Xingyue, and he's been acting since 2020. Like, he's only been acting barely 5 years, which
I love
fascinates a
him.
lot of people. It also fascinates a lot of
Yeah.
people to learn that he's only 23. I think he's 23 at
Yeah,
this
he's
point.
so young. He's
Yeah.
2002, I think, was his
Yes,
birth
yeah,
year.
I think so. I think so. So it's like he's not even a 90s baby.
Yeah. And it's funny because every single drama that I've seen him, he's playing someone like at least 3 or 4 years older than how old he is.
Do you think it's because it's the same thing with actors like Roulet, for example. They have a very mature face, so they can
Mm.
pull off those characters. But yeah, I very much remember everybody absolutely losing their mind when the double came on the scene, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, he's so good! I love him." And then people were like, "He's 22. He is 22." Everybody lost it collectively. And I was
Yeah.
like, look, I already, because I had watched him
Mm.
in quite a few things before the double. Um, so like I knew he was fairly young. But watching TikTok collectively, and not just TikTok, but other socials, people collectively lose their mind over the fact that he
Yeah.
was only 22.
Yeah.
Funniest thing. It was so
I think
funny to me. Yeah.
think after I watched A Mrs. Snowstorm of Love, I was like, let me find out how old these actors are. And I'm pretty
Mm,
sure Wule and I are around the same age. And I was like,
yes.
hold on a minute. Why is Wang Xingwei so young? He's like playing like someone in his like 30s or whatever. He's
Mm.
not in his 30s, that's a bit over exaggerating. But like I was so confused because both of them look a lot older than they not a lot older, but they do look older than they actually
They look
are.
mature. Yeah, they have like that
Yeah.
mature look to their face.
Yeah,
They don't
like
have
they
the
don't have like
typical
this
idol look. Yeah.
exactly. So I
Yeah.
think though it breeds a lot of dynamics. They can go into a lot more dramas than having because they don't have such a baby face. So I don't know,
I
I could
agree.
see
I
them
agree.
both having a bigger career for it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Wu Lei is 26 years old. That's Wu
Oh no,
Lei's
he's a bit
age
younger than
from
me. He is a bit younger than
he's
me. He's
from
2 years younger than me.
99. Yeah. But at least he's a 90s baby.
He
He's a 90s
is.
baby. So there we go.
Yeah, it just made me
Um
remember my age.
I'm older, so look, I, I'm squarely in my 30s at this point. um, although I, it's the weirdest story. I still get ID'd for stuff, and it's like the most annoying
Same.
thing, but also it's like,
I got ID'd in
look,
Aldi the other day
oh my
for
God.
buying an energy drink, so I feel it.
I was saying, do you know what? ID me in my 40s and I'll still be, look, I'll be happy then because it's like if I'm in my 40s and
Exactly.
still getting ID'd, I'll cheer for it. So, Wang Xingyu has been in things such as One and Only from 2021, which also stars by Lou. Delicacy's Destiny from 2022, which I have watched. I actually liked that one. Scent of Time from 2023, and obviously The Double from 2024, which I have reviewed on the podcast, and it is episode 90. So that's kind of like the cast and crew or the gist of it, everybody. There are other characters, but those two are really the main cast. Would you like to go ahead and just give your very quick general thoughts, non spoiler? Did you
Yeah.
like the drama? What did you think? And then we can go into, some other things.
Yeah, I did like the drama. The series is set on the backdrop of the Tang Dynasty, and it deals with a lot of
Hmm.
complex themes of justice, morality, power dynamics, conflicts, and the struggles of being a woman in a patriarchal society. And I think it really handles these themes well. It's a
Hmm.
crime mystery drama with a romantic subplot, so it's not in like the forefront of the drama. I think this series would be really good for those who enjoy looking for clues, people who are overthinkers, and Liliana. And I know that one might be a controversial take, but I think
Hmm.
quickly Pei and Huijin establish a really nice camaraderie. And I think that where I think people might go wrong is people might think that it will be a heavy romance dynamic when
Hmm.
it's not the case. So always quite subtle in, the light touches, the lingering glances, which I didn't mind. And most cases focus on the plight of women in the patriarch, whether it's consorts or the women that's living and working in the inner courts, which I really enjoyed. And each character is slightly morally grey, and you understand
Hmm.
why at times they need to do what they did, which I thoroughly enjoyed as well.
Yeah. So I agree. I really liked this drama, but it does come with a couple of caveats. So for you, it's not a problem because you probably haven't watched it. But there is another drama called Coroner's Diary or The Coroner's Diary, and
Yeah.
it is very similar in setup to this. The Coroner's Diary basically follows the female lead who is a coroner, a female coroner who is basically unheard of back then, and like a prince, and they kind of team up to solve cases. And there's like a backstory that kind of, with each case, they kind of add more to resolve. Now, a lot of people went into this having watched The Coroner's Diary, and then they kept comparing it. And I think that is going to do a disservice to both dramas. I feel like you need enough distance from The Coroner's Diary to be able to fully enjoy this one as separate things. I really liked, I kept saying this over and over again, but it's the fact that it is women's cases, because everything does go back to women. It's women's cases and their struggles within the Tang dynasty. But it's very curiously told from the point of view of someone who is in a position of power. And, because she does carry the title of County Princess. So that helps her a lot. But it's also very interesting because even though she has that title, she often feels like she has no power at all to uncover the truth. And even if she does uncover the truth, she feels like she can't get justice for it. And that was a very, very interesting point for me throughout the whole show, where she even, like Li Pei, played by Bai Lu, often starts to wonder, is it even worth me doing this? Because people in higher places are just going to glance over it anyways. And I feel like even though this is a historical drama, this is something that can be applied to even today, because you kind of think people in higher places are always going to be able to get away with a lot more than people in lower places. And I feel like that's a very, very interesting topic to kind of wander into. It isn't a romance drama, so people shouldn't go in for that. It is, they become friends and then they become lovers at the end. But I love the fact that they establish a respectful working relationship and they always trust each other within their work, even when they might seem like they're doing or committing the wrong thing, they still trust each other to do the right thing. And that to me means that their relationship was built on a very solid foundation, and I love that. I don't mind the slow build, like it doesn't bother me at all. And I will say my last thing is the pacing might not work for some people, because
Yeah.
although I found the cases really interesting, some of the cases did drag a little bit too long for what it needed to be. And I think
Mm,
some people might not enjoy that. They might enjoy something, a little bit quicker paced, because that's
mm,
what you kind of come to expect of a crime drama, because that's kind of what this is. You come to expect a little bit of a faster pace, in terms of how the story moves along. But even saying that, like, I enjoyed it. I really did. I liked it. I liked the relationship build up. I liked their little found family of people that kind of, helped them along their cases. And yeah, so.
yeah, I do. I will just say as well, though, I think the best way to compare it, if you have seen the BBC series Sherlock, it's
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
like that in the sense that it's very dark, it's very gritty, and the cases tend to interconnect into the following episodes. So you'll have
Hmm.
one case that will span, as you said, more than one episode. Um, and I think Sherlock is the best way that I can compare it to, which might sound really out there, but oh, Wang Xingyue's character, Xiao Huijin, is like a Sherlock-esque character in the series anyway, because he kind of
Hmm.
has that kind of foresight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He is quite good in that essence. And also, I will say one last thing that I want to say in the non-spoiler part is
Mm,
that I actually really liked the role reversal in this, because
mm,
a lot of people were like, I don't think I like Li Pei's character. And I'm like, do you know what? Li Pei's character is your typical male lead character that you
yeah.
see, because she's got brawn, she's got brains, she's got, she's very cold on the outside, but very caring on the inside. So she is your typical male lead character. And
Mm,
I think once you kind of switch your thoughts about it, then, and then you have Wang Xingyu's character, Hua Jin, who is basically your female character, because he doesn't fight. He uses his brain a lot of the time, and he's like useless at fighting. He needs Bailu's character to come in and rescue him a lot of the time. So I feel like I enjoy that when it happens, but I think people have to like adjust their expectations of the show to take that into consideration. The fact that,
absolutely.
there is definitely a role reversal, and I think both actors played it really, really well. The fact that, Wang Xingyu just you can see he's intrigued by Bailu like straight away. Like he is smitten with her. Even if the romance isn't the big plot, it is there from
Mm,
episode one. Like you
yeah.
can see the glances he does and everything. So yeah, I loved all of that aspect of it. So yeah, so let's rate this, and then we can get on the other side of spoilers. So for ratings, we have one teacup. It was something I watched. It wasn't good, but something made me finish, and that's a 1 to a 5.5 on MDL. Two teacups, the okay ones. Dramas I don't really recommend, but they were an okay background watch, and that's a 6 to a 7 on MDL. Three teacups, the enjoyable ones. Good dramas, they were enjoyable, and I would recommend to people who enjoy this genre. And that's a 7.5 to an 8 on MDL. And then we have four teacups, the loved ones. These are dramas that I really loved. There might be a couple of problems with it, but overall, a really enjoyable drama that I would recommend to a wider audience. And that's an 8.5 to a 9.5 on MDL. Five teacups, the rose glass no faults dramas. This rating is reserved for those dramas that you love so much that you are willing to ignore any problems they may have. And that's a 10 on MDL. So I would give this a 3.5, because it's not quite a 4 for me. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
enough like pacing issues to kind of throw me off a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there's enough cases in there that I really enjoyed. And like I said, I liked both Bailu and Wang Xingyu's characters. So I would say a 3.5. What would you rate this moon?
Mine's a little bit higher. So I gave it an 8.5 on initial
Mm-hmm.
rating.
Mm-hmm.
So a 40 cups, I think that
Yes.
translates to.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because as you said, there are a couple like pacing issues. My biggest letdown, in my opinion, was the ending.
Okay.
So I have like I don't know, there's been a lot of standout episodes for me,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, and the way how certain things were handled in the cases has
Mm-hmm.
kind of skewed my kind of rating, but also in terms of how certain things were handled and the directions that we kind of went into. I was just like, I understand why, but I'm not quite happy.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying not to give any spoilers yet.
Yes. Yes. And with that, we are going to be moving into spoilers now. So, this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't watched this drama, then please pause now, go and finish it, and come back. If you have, then go ahead and listen on. And if you don't mind spoilers, then keep listening as well. So, let's start. I think I want to start with Li Pei's character because I feel like
Yeah,
that's a
there's a
good
lot to talk about with
starting
her.
place. There is.
Yeah.
There is a lot to talk about with her. So, like we mentioned, she is the kind of character who is cold on the outside because when we meet her, she's just, solving cases and she seems like she's very smart, she's very sharp. But what I find fascinating about her character is that this was definitely not her path in life. She was put on it
Mm.
because of what happened to her parents. So she was always kind of like a princess because, from what I gather, her father is brother to the emperor. So
Mhm.
she was always a princess because her father was prince. So she gets the title of princess. So her 15 years ago, her parents get murdered, right? Because that is what happens. And her father gets blamed for it all. And that kind of sets her on a path to examine what happened because she doesn't quite remember everything that happened that night. She gets taken in by the emperor and consort Shu, and they kind of look after her until she comes of age. And then she also gets taken in by her Shifu, who is played by, I'm just going to bring him up because I forgot. So Du Zixing is her Shifu, and he's played by Ho Changrong, who to me, one of my favorite relationships in the
Yeah.
whole show. I loved Bailu and her. See, I always don't want to say master because that is a translation of it in English, but it
Yeah.
sounds so bad, doesn't it, when you say
Yeah.
master?
Like it doesn't have the same kind of power as Shifu does. I don't know,
Her
like
teacher. I don't
yeah,
know.
like yeah, like because he's so much more than just like a master, more than just a
Mhm.
teacher. He is Shifu.
Yeah, exactly. He is Shifu. It's like people sometimes when they come, see, this is one of the things that when people cross over into Chinese dramas might be a little bit hard for them to understand. It's like Shifu, what, a master? And it's like, well, no, it's not really a master because it doesn't come with that
Yeah,
connotation. It's someone that you kind of follow and teaches you the roots and like cares for you and things like that. So it's like it's so much more than just a straight up master. But their
exactly.
relationship together, I loved them. They were so chaotic. They honestly felt more like siblings than anything else because she was
Yeah.
always making fun of him and he was, looking after her. Um so yeah, I really liked her character. I think we saw her opening up throughout the cases, and
Mm,
there's even a scene much later on where you think she's going to do the wrong thing and you're like, oh my
mm.
God, what is happening? I surely not. Surely she's not going to go down the wrong path. And she doesn't. Like, it does get shown that she doesn't. And I was like, thank goodness. And it's like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have doubted you. I shouldn't have doubted you as a character.
But it's so easy to doubt her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially with the way how we're introduced to Li Pei as a
Mm-hmm.
whole, I don't know if you noticed at the very first episode where she's talking about like her past and her like the massacre of her family. It's the same episode of her in the palace where she's been in confinement. It's the same episode. It's shots from those kind of episodes
Yes.
and with the
Mm-hmm.
voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found really interesting is that we first really meet Li Pei as she's dressed up as a ghost.
Yes.
Because we're thrust straight into the case of the grave robbing of Shi Chaolin, which is like an
Yes.
official's daughter, for
Mm-hmm.
a marriage of the minister's ghost son who also died.
Mm-hmm.
And how Bai Lu acts in this scene is so unnerving, and it is a brilliant way to introduce Pei's character as it's so dark, it's so chaotic, it's so cinematic, and we really see not only her background of martial arts, but she's not one to back down, and she's really one to kind of get into kind of spaces and the faces of everyone that is trying to kind of make her know her place.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
as you kind of said it earlier, she kind of becomes this kind of victim to the own society that she's kind of in and the rules that she's trying to kind of uphold. And I think that you kind of find yourself desperate, like she is, to find out who is the killer, who is,
Yeah.
you know, who's after her. Every single episode, someone's after her or someone's after someone within her team. And the way how Bailu is able to kind of show even down to the micro expressions that Pei has, and even down to the costuming and the direction is stunning
Mm-hmm.
within this drama.
I agree. And I think it's also like quite fascinating how that is the first case that we're introduced to,
Mm,
because she is playing a ghost in that case to kind of like get to the head of, the information that she needs. And she is brutal and she is lethal, and she's like, I'll do what I gotta do. You see straight away she's the type of character that she will do what she needs to.
mm,
But I also think it's a good play on the situation because she is at that point just a ghost drifting through life with the
mm,
singular focus of proving and finding out what happened to her parents. That is literally
exactly.
all she is at that point. Um, she's not really living, she's just going through the motions. And I feel like that was very interesting and fitting. Once later on, you kind of see her really start to live, and not just start to live, but wanting to live.
Mm,
It makes a really, really good comparison to where she did start off in the first. And then it does lead in nicely into the second case, because the second case is of her, I don't know, 15th princess is
mm,
Rushan as the 15th princess, and like she constantly keeps getting bullied. She fakes her own death, and she's trying to get away. And that shows that although Pei seems very cold, she's not, because this is somebody
mm,
she cares for. This is somebody that she does want to protect.
mhm.
And I really, really liked that story. Like, I did. That story was like, that case was hard to like watch.
Yeah, yeah, and just the overall that case itself is you really understand why the princess did what she did. You really
Hmm.
do, and
Hmm.
you have so much empathy for her, and it's like, okay, I understand why you kill these people. I understand what, even down to like the embroidery of her ex-partner's back, and that is so visceral, and it's very shocking as a viewer
Hmm.
to kind of see she just really did that. But
Hmm.
as I said, you really do understand. And every character, as I said earlier, in this series is very morally grey. You do understand why they went down their revenues as to what they did. And then in that final kind of ending of that episode where, she goes to His Highness and says, yeah, okay, this is what I did. I'm so sorry. And even though like the palace clearly covered up what she did, clearly covered it
Hmm.
up. And
Hmm.
His Highness says, okay, it's fine, I'll set you up with another marriage proposal. As if this wasn't the whole reason why she tried to fake her death in the first place, and then
Mm.
unfortunately did lead to her actual death. Um,
Yeah.
and I remember after watching that episode, I sat back in my sofa like, did did that really just happen? And the second she
Mm.
said, "Father, can I dance for you again?" I was like, she's gonna end it.
She's
She's
gonna end it.
absolutely
Yeah,
gonna
you
end
can
it.
see it. Yeah, you
You
can
can
see
see
it
it on her
coming.
face.
Yeah. And the thing is, it becomes very obvious because, and this isn't just in China, like at that time,
Mm,
it's everywhere. They wanted boys. They wanted princes. They didn't want princesses because princesses, all they were good for was marriage alliances.
mhm.
And that was the struggle. Like, and it's also quite interesting to see because when you think about it, right, you think, oh, a princess, she has everything. She has beautiful clothes and, beautiful gowns, and she lives in a palace and all of these things. But once you start digging into, I mean, this 15th princess was born to a dancer who
Mhm.
caught the emperor's eye and then she got pregnant. And there is a theme about this
I was
emperor
literally just about to say
just
that. Yeah,
just catching women's eye and or being caught by a woman and being like, you're it, you're mine, and then basically ruining that woman's life just by
literally.
bestowing his wants on these women. And it's like you can't say no because he's the emperor.
Yeah, and you
And
don't have a
it was
choice.
very, yes. So I found that very, very, very fascinating. Very fascinating. Um, yeah. I liked the case. It was she like you couldn't understand her. So yeah. Mm,
Yeah, and I think the avenues that were led down as well, you can tell that um Xiao Huaijin in comparison to Li Peiyi, he is always going to try his best to kind of stick within the rules, stick within, you know, the law that governs where they are. Whereas Pei will try her best to try and push the limits of whatever she can, even if it means that she will, in the episode, the first couple episodes, she poisons herself just to solve the case. She will
mhm.
willingly throw herself into the fire time and time again and self-sabotage herself for the good of the case if it's going to get the an answer, which I find interesting, and it juxtaposes a later episode as well, which we see that same dynamic, and the negative spin of that dynamic as well. And I
Yeah.
think we're able to kind of already bridge the contrast that we're going to see with all of our characters. And I think that the first couple episodes set up the series so well into
Hmm.
knowing exactly what you're going to get and exactly what to expect of these cases. They're going to be dark. They're not going to be fluffy. You're not going to get that kind of whirlwind romance. You're not going to get, you're going to kind of be taken aback every single episode and be like, did I
Hmm.
really just watch that? What just happened
Hmm.
right now on my screen? And why am I pointing my finger at everyone? Because everyone is involved in something in this case.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very much Li Pei is grey lines. She sees everything
Mm,
in tones of grey, right? And she's not necessarily scared to take the extra mile because, again, she is a goat. Like, she's not afraid of dying. And she doesn't really, the only thing that's keeping her alive is her revenge and what she wants to do. Whereas our male lead, Hua Jin, he is a very, it's black or it's white, right? He
mm,
is very, it's either right or it's wrong,
mm.
whereas she's not. And I really like that contrast between the two characters. So when we meet him, and I also, this show does something where you don't really trust him for the first couple of
Yeah, you
episodes
really
because,
don't.
no, because you really like the show kind of almost plays up the fact that he had something to do, him and his family had something to do with the downfall of her father and her
Mm,
family. And you're like, oh, do I trust it? Like, what is happening? And I really enjoyed that because even as the audience, you kind of didn't know. And he even
Yeah.
asks his mother, "Oh, can you keep this secret? Make sure she doesn't find out. We don't want her to find out." But we don't know what they're talking about. So I really liked that kind of like introduction. But you could see straight away that he was very captivated by her. And,
Hmm.
he wanted to help her. Um, even though his father never wanted him in like any court dealings, that's why, he kind of got pushed to the astronomy bureau. He went there to answer her question. I mean, that is the only
Exactly.
reason he went there, is because she asked him a question about the stars and he didn't know the answer. So he wanted to learn the answer for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to remember that these characters are what, like 25, 20,
Hmm.
in their like mid 20s. They're very young, and he's dedicated over
It's
10 years of
old
his
for them
life.
in that decade.
Also in that decade, but like in like today's mindset, that's a 25-year-old, and he spent most of his life dedicated just to answer this one question for her,
Hmm.
which kind of sets up the character that he is. And as you said, you don't trust him in the very beginning. And I wonder if that's because the director wants you to kind of see Lee Pei's perspective on everything for the first couple of
Hmm.
episodes before they kind of become united and become one front. And that episode was that was a turning point for me in their relationship, is when he says to her, "You need to trust me." And from
Hmm.
that episode onwards, you don't look at him as a suspect anymore. You kind of now look at everyone else, which I really enjoyed. Um,
Hmm.
and I understand why some people thought like Shao Huijin is quite, I don't know, like stiff as a character.
Yes.
But he kind of
Yes.
has to be, and it makes sense for his character. And Wang Xingyue plays his character very well, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, and as I said, because he's got that kind of like Sherlock-esque character, we're able to see how the crimes would have occurred, and they place us in those moments of those crimes, and we're able to be thrown into every single dynamic. And I also enjoyed that he's very level-headed and quite cunning until it comes to Pei.
Hmm.
As you said, you can see immediately from the jump when he looks at her from the tower that he's at. Uh, And it's also, I don't know if you noticed this, but the leveling of where they were in terms of where the towers are set, she was much higher than him until they
Hmm.
become to the same level. Um, and I really enjoyed that. And even in when he, goes to prison in that first episode because she arrests him, and he obviously solves part of the case for her, like immediately to kind of let her know, hey, I'm on your side. Like you can trust me. He's still
Hmm.
kind of cold to her. He's still like, do you know what? I'm gonna still abide by what my father's doing, but in the background, I'm still gonna try and figure some stuff out to try and help you the best way that I can until,
Yeah.
we can come together properly. And I do have to thank His Majesty for placing them together. Although
Yes.
it was fire by force, and even though Paige's character in the very beginning is a very look at my nose to spite my face character, she, after some stiff talking to by um Qui-Gon, stops doing that and really starts to consider his emotions to an extent, which I really
Hmm.
enjoyed.
But it's very fascinating because I think that comes around too in his character later on, where he kind of goes ahead and to save her, he kind of like proposes marriage to His
Yeah,
Majesty, and his mother is like, "Have you gone to see her? Like, have you gone to explain her these things?" And he's like, "No, she should just know." And she's like, "No,
yeah.
she shouldn't. She is still a woman. Like, she needs to be reassured because at this time she's probably sitting there thinking, did you propose because
Mhm.
you this was a way to save me, or did you propose because you actually have feelings for me?" So he even
Which we
like that's the
got to
way
see
his
as
mind
well, which
works.
I
Yeah.
loved.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I like the fact that we got to see that in Pei, because that's a very soft side that we don't get to see. And even the small
Mm-hmm.
dynamics where she was like, "Oh, I think I've upset him," and
Mm-hmm.
she did upset him, and she took the time to apologize. But even when she was talking to his dad, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm just using him to get my memory back," and you saw that he was outside. You saw that
Mm-hmm.
he was upset. And he was clearly affected by what she had said, because he had, as you said later on, re-proposed marriage twice now to say, I will get married to her. I will do the right thing. I think he would have done it anyway, even without like
Mm-hmm.
any persuasion. But the fact that he wanted to save her, which is actually one of my favorite episodes from the series anyway. Um, just the way how his character was with Pei, I've really enjoyed, and that yearning that we got to have with these two characters, it was really
Mm-hmm.
subtle. It was hand-holding. It was glances. It was just their own little dynamic that they'd have together. I think
Yeah.
both actors really portrayed both roles really well, and both characters felt very special and very complex in their own right, which I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes with these style dramas can be lost, especially if you have a character that is quite hard and very cold, which Li Pei is, and
Mm-hmm.
very flat, which Xiao Huijin is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just like them as characters, and I think they worked really well together.
Mm,
Now, just back to the cases, because to
yes.
me, there's two cases that were my favorite. And funnily enough, her parents' case was not one of my favorites.
Same.
But to me, one of my favorites is actually like however you count it. So cases if it's cases of them working together, it's their second case. But it's the third sort of case that you see,
Yeah.
which is the maid in the wall that kind of leads you to the coerced maids from the palace being, used by very high ranking officials as, playthings. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
That whole case was fascinating to me. Like, I
Mm,
loved it. And I also think it's the very first case where you truly see that men at the top can get away with anything almost because
yeah.
she comes across this case and she starts investigating and they're both investigating and they discover the truth, but it's like they can't seem to get away with it. Like they can't find a way to make justice for these maids that were taken and are being, used as playthings by these very high ranking because it involves a lot of high ranking officials. And it's like the emperor needs their support in court and whatnot. So there's a lot of politics at play. And when the
Mhm.
politics come into play and the power comes into play, it's like justice almost goes out the window. And that's almost the message that was putting here. And to have that case end up being the fact that they're taken down by the women that were wronged and violated them, is poetic, but so also so incredibly sad because they end up killing themselves
Mhm.
to incriminate these men and to take these men down with them. And it's like, it feels like a poetic and yet incredibly sad way because they were saying this was the only way to take them down. So there's a lot to unpack in there, but that was one of my favorite cases in the show, I think.
Yeah, and I think with that case in particular, you feel very emotionally drained at the end of that case because you can see that they've done everything in their possible, like, they've run out of every single option. It proves that how deeply entrenched everything is in that palace and how everyone is so involved. And oh, I don't, that case was like a very hard watch for me because obviously that
Hmm.
case spanned a couple episodes and it was, I don't know, it kind of set the tone of what we're going to see in the later episodes and the
Hmm.
people that are involved with Pei's death, sorry, Pei's parents' massacre.
Hmm.
And it sets the kind of tone of what we're going to be seeing in the future as well really well. And I didn't realize that until I had taken a second after the episodes. I'm like, oh wow, there's too many people involved. There's too many people in higher places. This is really what these guys are doing. And
Hmm.
they're like ministers, they're chancellors, like they're these really high forces that dictate what's going to happen in the entire country. Um,
Yeah.
obviously not real, but it's just it was very deep. It was very
Mhm,
deep.
mhm. I agree.
Um,
And then my second favorite case of the
mhm.
whole show comes much later on, and it is basically there's an uncle. They're out of the palace, and that's why
Yeah.
I'm quite intrigued because it plays back almost into the maid's case, but it's
Hmm.
outside the palace. So you're seeing something that is not, in the palace. And it's like there's a death of an uncle of hers that kind of leads to a charlatan full a house of pregnant women, like forcing them
Yeah.
to have children at the auspicious time. And it's causing the women harm because they're basically giving them this concoction that induces labor. But by inducing labor, it's basically harming them and harming, you know, the babies sometimes. And
Hmm.
what I found very sad about this story is the fact that these women are getting basically they're getting that they target very poor vulnerable women, and they kind of take them in and they're made to lay in bed with, again, people with money and who want babies to be born at a specific time so that it's an auspicious sign to them. And these women don't really have a lot of options, but the story that they really focus in is a daughter who gets married and her husband is very, very sick and he needs a specific, herb that is very expensive and they can't afford it. So she kind of gets chucked in, she goes, she gets pregnant, all to save her husband, right? But not only, so there is a baby that is born of that. The baby obviously gets taken away from her. But not only does she then get thrown back into her family, she saved her husband, but the family don't treat her very nicely. And her husband finds out and he wants nothing to do with her. Yet she did this, she sacrificed herself to save her husband. And her husband only sees her as someone who's dirty and someone who isn't worthy of it, of, being with him. And not only that, but then she ends up killing herself and they want to sell her
Yeah.
body, her dead body, as a ghost bride to get money for the husband's new wedding. And I'm
Which
like,
again links to the first episode as well.
yes, this case was just so incredibly twisted. And
Hmm.
there was layer upon layer upon layer. And I was like, this is so sad to see. So sad to see how low men will go. And the thing is, you could empathize with the killer in that case because it was the father of this woman that had gone through all of this. Like, I could empathize with him because his daughter went through hell with this
Hmm.
family. And yeah, they couldn't even help her in the end because after she had had that baby for that rich noble, she kept miscarrying and she couldn't
Yeah.
carry another baby to term. And that made her useless in the eyes of, society because women are there to have babies and to carry on the name of the families and whatnot. So that those two cases for me
Mm.
really were triggering and like they were just horrendous to watch, I think.
That episode genuinely made me angry. Like that case made me so angry. And
Mhm.
again, whilst I understood the grandfather to an extent, because I think he continued killing, I think a little bit after that. Um,
Mhm.
I just there was no justice done. There was nothing that could have been done. And then at the very end, when the grandson had to say, "Grandpa, please don't," like it just broke
Ugh.
my heart. And I'm like, there's nothing that could have fixed this. Obviously, Pei and um like the bureau, they didn't know about it, so they couldn't stop it, and it's not really in their jurisdiction to stop it anyway.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that one was a really hard watch. My favorite cases were linked based
Okay.
essentially. So mine was the baby ghost and Consort Lee. So
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
baby ghost is I think the third and the fourth cases.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but it's where it's episode 12 to 14 where Consort Wei and the prince's concubine kills Lady Wang, which is a
Mm-hmm.
musician that was seen by the emperor. And it's a really weird dynamic, but she ends up becoming impregnated by his son.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or so
the
you think.
yeah, because it's not really, yeah, but anyway, but yeah, and the consort ends up killing her. Um, and I think episode 12 is where we see Lady Wang's body has been burned after learning that she had was 4 months along, and with the
Mm-hmm.
introduction of the loss-inducing incense, which caused Pei and Huijin to potentially get married, we then got
Mm-hmm.
to see that Huijin's family father is actively trying to make Pei stay away from his son. And
Yeah.
Pei is actively trying to get her memories back, which I really enjoyed. And by the 14th
Mm-hmm.
episode, was able to see, as I said earlier, Pei apologized to Huijin, and that relationship dynamic start to blossom. And then
Mm-hmm.
with Consort Lee, we are introduced to Ying, who is uses unorthodox methods to solve cases and assumes the identity of a male Pei Yu, and Pei
Yeah.
Yu who assumes the identity of a butcher who's working in the Imperial Food Service. And both episodes are so unnerving. All those episodes, because it's episodes 12 to 15. 18
Mm-hmm.
that I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed. All those episodes are so unnerving, and we're able to see like, women being introduced into medicine and how they're used to solve cases. Later on, we do get introduced to another female physician, but it's showing how crazy people will go to lengths to make things work and make things happen. And I think Peiyu's character, that whole dynamic was, I genuinely felt scared watching that episode where he killed himself, just so then Ying
Mm-hmm.
could find a diagnosis for the epidemic that they were both in, just for them
Mm-hmm.
both to have that tragic Romeo and Juliet end. And it
Mm-hmm.
genuinely stood out to me, amongst all the other cases that we get to see.
Yeah.
I wonder what your thoughts are on those episodes though, because it's like
Those
a sizable chunk.
episodes, yeah, those episodes were intense. And it's like, I think those episodes are there to tell you one thing. She wasn't a man, because if she had been a man, she would have been renowned as one of the most talented doctors
Mm-hmm.
in that dynasty, right? And I think that is one of the big points of those episodes because she, even when the epidemic breaks out, she tells them there's something coming. We need to start doing. They don't listen to her because she's a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think those episodes were very intense because I didn't realize until it was fully revealed that he was there willingly trading places with her.
Yeah.
Pei Yu he saw that she was the female Pei Yu was so
Mm.
incredibly talented and she deserved that spot more than he did, right?
Mm.
And I think he was willing to I think he had a couple of screws loose, let's put it that way. He
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely had a couple of screws loose, but his main thing was he wanted her to succeed and he wanted her to just be able to practice medicine, right? And he was willing to do anything and remove any obstacle for her to be able to reach that dream of hers.
Mm.
So it was a very intense couple of episodes, and I had no idea where that story was going to go. But
Mm.
I think it very much follows the theme of women being trapped by their gender in essence. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that even goes back to not episode, but say like episode, the first case, them together, technically second case of the 15th princess, where when she does kill herself, Bai Lu's character Pei asks us, why did you do this? And she simply answers, so this way no one else can ever force me to do what I don't want to do. And it's like, you know, it's so realistic, it's so poignant, that line, because she's choosing death
Hmm.
And in death, she's finding her own freedom. And I think that's so poetic in a way.
Hmm.
But also, I want to talk about this, but it might spoil you on another drama. There
Okay,
is
what
an
drama?
one and only. There is an Easter egg.
Yeah,
Okay. Because there is an Easter egg in this episode, and she's basically dressed in red and she throws herself off the stage,
uh,
right? And
yeah,
she
yeah.
falls onto snow, and it's all
Mm,
very beautiful. That is kind of like a little Easter egg and a throwback to One and Only, where we have Bailu and Wang
mm,
Xingyue, because Wang Xingyue plays this crazy prince of sorts that
yeah,
wants at all costs to marry Bailu's character, and Bailu doesn't
yeah.
want that. So in that show, one of the like Bailu's very last scene in that show is she is taking off all of her wedding stuff and she's walking up to the tower and she throws
Mm.
herself off the tower.
I have seen that
And
clip. I haven't seen that
right.
clip.
So that is kind of like a break, and she's dressed in red, and
Mm,
it is one of the most beautiful death scenes I have seen, which is kind of like almost contradictory. Um, but this is almost like literally a callback to that because they both are being forced to do something they don't want to. So they choose death over marriage, basically. And it's a nice little Easter egg if you know what to look for. But yeah, there is just time and time and time again um lines and throwbacks to women not having power or anything. And one of those is like episode 10, which is the end of the maid's case. And
mm,
they basically take their own lives and whatnot. And then the image of the field and Bailu's character Pei puts them all buried in a really nice hill, and she puts Tomb of the Seven Palaces, and she says the bravest woman in all the country. And it's like because they chose to take them down, so they're choosing to not take this to any other women. It's not going to happen to other women, at least not from them because they're dead. So I feel like that, and just there's just lines and lines about women and about justice. In episode 14, which is the musician story case, and female lead says, I can uncover the truth, but I just can't see the justice. And it's like, that is a constant theme in this, is that she starts to doubt and she starts to think, what is the point of me coming up with these with finding the truth when justice is nowhere to be seen and served. Um, so yeah, I really like that theme throughout the drama
I
in
think
general.
I think as well, her final lines to His Majesty is the fact that she can't stand the fact that although she's supposed to be upholding justice, she can't ever get justice for those who deserve it as
Hmm.
well. And you can see how that infuriates His Majesty. And it's like, but it's true though. There's no matter what she does, and even there's an episode where her master, again, Shifu, um,
Yeah.
t almost takes away her role because of the fact in one of the early episodes because she was willing to let so the 15th Princess get away with what she had done. And
Hmm.
it kind of shows that, yeah, sure, she's morally grey, but she also has morals within that, and she
Hmm.
can't stand the society that she's in, and
Yeah.
she wants to do whatever she can, even if it's wrong or seen as wrong or
Yeah.
viewed as wrong, to get the best possible outcome, which is why I think towards the end, when we are revealed with whoever has killed, I'm still not trying to give spoilers, whoever has
Oh,
killed,
you can spoil away. You can
okay,
spoil away now. Yeah, 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 absolutely.
the right chancellor killed his family, you can
Hmm.
see that Hui Jin is like, I don't want you to do the wrong thing and get yourself into a worse position and get yourself into somewhere or become someone that you're completely not for the sake of you getting revenge. I still want you to be able to do whatever you can do and get your revenge, but do it right. And it
Yeah.
still plays in that their same dynamics where Um, you know, it's like constant battle, and it makes you wonder like what the relationship will be like in the future. Because although he does do things that are slightly not right, he's still going to stay on this on the right side
Mm,
at
mhm,
the end of the
mhm.
day. But yeah, that's my
Yeah,
thoughts
but
with that.
that plays beautifully into the line in episode 34 when she
Hmm.
does finally get her revenge because she basically makes the right chancellor, come down. And you think she's going to choose the wrong path because you think she's siding with bad people to do so, but she doesn't. And I love that. And one of her final line to him is, you thought you stood above the rules of this world, then I'll turn your rules against you and kill you with them. And then she slashes
Yeah,
his throat. And it's so satisfying. And it's
yeah.
so good because that's the man that slashed her father's throat and
Hmm.
played with the rules and thought nobody could, show him justice. And I can see where she's coming from because she the emperor knew all along that something wasn't quite right, but he didn't want to investigate because he wanted to kind of like protect his court ministers and his people and stuff. So I don't know. I thought that was a worthy ending for her and her situation there, I think.
Yeah, I'm very happy that she was the one to get revenge rather than someone else or a team of
Yes.
people getting the revenge. I like the fact that it was also a decree. And in the early episodes, what Lady Pei is pitted to be like the pitiful character.
Mhm.
She's the fallen star, because her family's massacred. She has a memory, and she's remaking her own identity outside
Mhm.
of that, which I really enjoyed. And like her character is so complex and so dynamic, and all everything that's happened is taken, I think, over the course of about a year. Just because when we're introduced to the series, it looks like it's been about a year since. Because
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure they said in the first episode is 15 years, and the final episode I'm
Yes.
pretty sure he says 16 years.
Mhm.
I might be wrong on that, but I believe it is a year. Um, and we're able to kind of see her change and grow rather than it being like 10 years later and it being like a whole grandiose kind of end
Mhm.
to Peggy's story, which it might not even be an end because but it looks like it was teased to be a second season later on, with
Mhm.
the post credit scene. Um, I did enjoy Peggy's ending and to her character to an extent. I have issues
Okay.
with her
Okay, go for
character.
it. Well, let's talk about the ending and what you think about that aspect.
Okay, so I loved the conversation between Pei and Consort Shu at the end.
Mhm.
I genuinely felt so sorry for Consort Shu. The fact that Pei had to remind her of her own name, and she had said something along the lines of, I haven't even forgotten that name. In this palace, I'm Consort Shu. It
Mhm.
made me think, wow, you've not even been able to have your own name for so long and your own identity because you are His Majesty's
Mhm.
and that's it. And she is Your Highness. She is Your Highness, or she is Consort Shu only. Um, and that final episode where she's like on the tower and she's got tears in her eyes at the Lantern Festival, that genuinely broke my heart. And I felt bad
Mhm.
for her. And I was like, why is His Majesty coming out to go hold her hand? Go away. Like, um,
It's very much a cage is still a cage, even if it's a gilded one. So
yeah.
her cage might be covered in gold, but it's still a cage.
Yeah, literally. And that there was a scene in an earlier episode where when she was in the Cold Palace and she got off a lock of her hair to give to His Majesty, and the eunuch even says that she said that all she had that was hers is her hair. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what do you mean all you have that's yours is your hair? You don't have an identity because your identity is carved by His Majesty. So I like that final conversation and end with Consort Shu and Pei. I didn't like the fact that we didn't end with the prince because obviously it was revealed a couple episodes earlier that the mastermind behind um I don't remember what his name is, the guy that turned to be evil, the twist villain. Um
The Crown Prince? Is it the Crown
no,
Prince?
not the crown prince, but he's the person that I'm talking about. But uh is the who the crown prince was talking to that was working with Pei.
Oh, Uncle Shu. I think he's called Uncle Shu. Is that the one?
I don't know what his name is, but him. that character. I think we're talking about the same person. I didn't write down his name for some reason, but him. I don't like the fact that we didn't get an end with that because they've teased that for potentially to be like a second season, and that's probably where those
Mm-hmm.
6 episodes that got cut probably went to as well for like a thing and for that. Because obviously the series was a greenlit to have 40 episodes and got cut down to 34.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think they handled the series as a whole really well. It didn't feel like there's tons of plot holes or anything. The issues that I have, like the biggest issue,
Mm.
is Pei and Hwajin's relationship.
Okay.
I don't like the end. I don't like their conclusion. And it was really grating on me why I didn't enjoy the final episode like everyone else I've seen did. And that's maybe because in in episode like I think 13 or 14 were teased with the fact that the prospect of a wedding will occur because of the lusting incense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that didn't happen. That was fine. And then in the later episode, she then gets forced to be in confinement. And we watch Wajin work to the point that he's sick, coughing up blood to get Pei out and to plead to
Mm-hmm.
His Majesty to get Pei out and allows them to get married. And then by the following episode, they've already broken up. Then he's fallen sick and is still trying to prove to Pei that she can get the revenge that she wants without being morally wrong. And then by the
Mm-hmm.
final episode, it's like I'm meant to believe that as a viewer that just because Pei handed Hojin the knife to get himself free, that everything is fine. And whilst I understand that dynamic, it just felt like the series would have benefited by having one extra episode to untie that knot and unpack that
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more, which is why my rating went down as well. I understand why it ended the way it did, and it's still bittersweet and it's a good ending. It's just not an ending that I would have foreseen for those two characters. And I think from the sentiment that we've seen of Wajin's character and how he's able to get P to talk to him and kind of
Yeah.
see what's going on in her mind a little bit, I think I would have felt better as a viewer if that was dealt with better. It felt too quick and it felt like it was like, okay, cool, take it off, and now we're gonna ride off into the hills and
Yeah.
out of the palace. And
Yeah.
that was my biggest critique with the series.
I think, I think, so basically, I think they were missing like just a conversation. That's all it needed to be.
Mm,
I think basically what happened was he understood that she kind of needed to do that alone. She didn't need to do it
mm,
with him. And I think she was also fully expecting to die. I honestly think she was
mm,
fully expecting to die. So what she did is the very typical male
mm,
lead noble idiocy, which is to push
mm,
the female lead away to protect her, right? So
mm,
again, it's one of those cases where it's very much role reversal,
mm-hmm.
and she's pushing him away to protect him and to make you doubt her intentions. I think it would have been better if it had come to light that they had been working together all along, like he knew what was
Yeah,
happening. I think that
exactly.
little tweak, it would have been such a small tweak, and then it would have been fine. But then you wouldn't had the angst, would you, of him falling sick and all of these situations. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
people enjoy that aspect of it as
Yeah.
well. So it comes with a couple of things, but I honestly just think they needed a little conversation. I
Mm,
understand why they both quit. I understand why they both walked away from the capital, because she had too many bad memories in that place. She was
mhm.
never going to be able to be happy in that place. And I think both of them, and he's just happy wherever she is. If she is
Yeah.
there, he's happy. So I think I enjoyed them walking away from it all, and
Hmm.
they'll be able to be free and live their own lives in aspect without having to be, the princess, the county princess, or him having to be this or that. They won't have to have those expectations on them because they're away from the palace. Now, do I think they needed an extra little conversation? Yes. But I guess what they're trying to portray is that because he left her that knife, oh,
Hmm.
she left him that knife, he kind of clicked and tweaked and understood where she was going with her plan, which had been happening like throughout the whole series. They just kind of seem to have this unspoken connection, an
Hmm.
unspoken dialogue between them, that
Hmm.
they automatically kind of know what they want to do, if that makes sense.
Mm,
But yeah, I agree. I think there needed to be a little conversation at least between them.
mm,
And the post credit scenes was not necessary. I think they're leaving it with the chance that if they want to do a second season, there will. Is there ever going to be one? Probably not. I will tell
yeah,
you right now, there probably isn't going to be a second season because
of
they do
course.
this all the time. They leave like little nuggets to leave room for a second season, but honestly, half the time the season just is not gonna, come back.
Mm,
I like I said, I liked the drama. I think for me, the thing that suffered the most was the pacing of it. And it wasn't even the
mhm.
writing, because the writing was really good in some places, but in other places, the pacing just felt slow. And that meant that it was a little bit more boring in certain
Yeah, yeah,
places.
yeah. I can feel that.
But yeah, to me, the pacing was the biggest problem of the
Yeah,
show. But I still loved it. I still found the characters very, compelling. So yeah. Have you got
yeah,
any more thoughts that you would like to
yeah.
put out there?
I was gonna just say that I think for this series, with how like I take it, it's not like a series I think is for everyone. It's not an easy
Hmm.
watch either, and you have to
Hmm.
be able to stomach a lot of themes that you might not realize that you're gonna kind of be thrust into. Um,
Yes.
and I think it's a series that it's a very good watch. Is it a series I'd recommend to everyone? No. Is it a series that I'd say I will rewatch? No.
No.
Some of those themes are so dark. I don't think I have the mental capacity to rewatch
I
a lot of
agree.
those themes. It's a very good like first watch, I think, as well. And it's
Hmm.
a very good break from like stereotypical dramas that you're gonna see, especially with like the upcoming dramas we've got this month and next month. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I think you made a really good point, and I've just forgotten it. Sorry, my brain just farted.
You're
Um.
fine. It happens. It happens to us.
Um, yeah, I think with oh, this is really gonna irritate me. With who is he? Sorry, I'm really trying to think as fast as I can.
You're fine.
Um,
Take your time. We're good.
no, I feel so bad. Just stalling
No,
for
no,
time.
no, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. The Crown Prince, maybe?
No,
The
you
Emperor?
said no, you said something about Pei and Huajin.
I was talking about how I like them walking away from the palace and kind of leaving it all behind. And that they
Yes,
just, yeah.
I I don't know how much I enjoyed them. uh, Okay, do you know how you said that, they've left that gateway for there to be like an extra
Yes,
series or an extra
yes.
like, and obviously I don't think it's going to happen either.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think I needed I did there's a couple of scenes in that last ending episode I didn't need, and I do understand what you're saying with the pacing because some parts do feel really long. I didn't need the snowball fight. I didn't think that was necessary. I felt so
No.
random, so out of place.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and it didn't feel like their characters at all. And maybe it was to show that, these characters, are now relieved and they feel happy, so they
Unburdened.
can have,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so they can have that moment. But it just felt so strange because we've never seen them have that kind of dynamic. Even when they've
Yeah,
been
yeah, yeah.
joking, they've never said, "Hey, let me go throw a snowball at you," right when we're
It was a
about to
very quick
kiss.
shift, wasn't it? It was a very quick shift in their characters.
Yeah, and that placement could have been used to have an actual conversation between them and the knife. Um, Also, I do get what you were saying about how it's like they automatically telepathically know what the other person's thinking and why they would do certain things. I felt like it would have benefited from because obviously we said that the it's a tonal shift and it's a reverse kind of story. I think
Hmm.
what would have been really interesting is if they made Jin's character kind of come out of himself and be a little bit unreasonable. Obviously, it's the last episode, so there's only so much they can do in the time that they
Yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
But I think if they had more time to play, what I would have really liked to see is Jin's character be very unreasonable and not trying to understand what Pei is trying to do, therefore making Pei then have to do the work, like you would see in a stereotypical drama
Make
anyway.
her do the chase. Make her do the chase a
Yeah,
bit.
and I
Yeah.
think that would be really interesting to see, this character that we've seen. be overly logical, overly reasonable to suddenly be like, no, I don't want to see what you're trying to see.
Hmm.
Kind of
Hmm.
like what we see with Warren, when she runs to the astronomical bureau to see Roger working, and she's like, why aren't you doing anything? Help me. But also, I made a note, my favorite part of that final episode is
Hmm.
Prosecutor Gu and Warren and their relationship. I really like the
Oh
fact,
yes.
I like when, do you know when she had the cherry and she was
Yeah.
giving it to him and he ate it from her
Yeah.
mouth? I thought it was so funny and I loved it. Was very attractive. Like I love their dynamic. I love the fact that Warren is now going to be the new not president, the new like boss, and all of them are
Yes.
shouting, "Yes, my boss, my boss, my boss." I love seeing all the different women and people that they encountered throughout the whole of the series and all the different cases as a nice final goodbye rather than, as I said, doing a 10 years later or flash forward. Like from the consorts, the musicians and the physicians. Um, them riding for their wedding attire, essentially, because she was in like they look like they were in wedding attire anyway, in
Hmm.
my
Hmm. Hmm.
eyes. It made sense for their characters. But I don't feel the field bit was necessary. That felt
Yeah.
like just a way for them to just plan up to say the end.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it kind of shows the first episode where Rajan is riding on that narrow road uh for that first case and it's kind of like mirroring that. Um I like the final kiss as well on the backdrop of the Lantern Festival. It was needed. We finally got what we wanted as romance girlies and yearners
Hmm.
alike. Um but yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is by those eyes when she's walking away after killing the Chancellor, you can kind of see that relief. And I was thinking, is she going to change? How is this character going to be after this? And we don't get those
Hmm.
questions answered, but I'm very happy that we didn't. I'm very happy
Yeah.
they didn't try and force us to have an answer, and we've been able to draw to our own conclusions to an extent.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'll just leave it to she's going to take it one day at a time, and she's going to grow and evolve away from this case and now knowing that she did what she wanted to do. I also, like I said, I loved how they went back and gave each survivor a couple of seconds, like you were saying. I loved that little check in, like them almost paying homage to the people that stay behind, right? And
Mm.
they kind of remind you of the cases in that way. So yeah, I really liked it. I love the fact that it finishes on a lantern festival where it all
Mm.
started for her. So it's kind of like a full circle moment. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think, bar a couple of little things, I think it's an
Yeah,
overall good drama. So yeah,
I have a
I
question
don't
for
have
you.
go for it.
Sorry, I just want to say, was there like a death that impacted you in this series? Because obviously there's a lot of deaths that's happened in this series.
Um, I think the maids, because they chose death and they had been so violated and so,
Mm,
and there was no other justice for them. There was no
mm,
way for them to have justice, but they took justice into their own hands. And I think there is something poetic about that, choosing your own death. There's, you know, something there to that as well. What about you?
liked um okay, the first one's gonna say there's two I've got in my head. One
Hmm.
is kind of dark, the way I'm gonna describe it, but I have good intentions. Um Prosecutor Gu's sister when she dies,
Yeah,
because you
yeah, yeah.
see the dynamics between Warren and Prosecutor Gu, but also you get to see how that has shaken up the rest of the story and shaken the maids up into
Hmm.
the rest
Hmm.
of their case, which I liked. And I also liked the death of her master.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
one really took me aback because obviously I knew he was going to die, of course, but the fact that he knew who killed him. And then after, because for such a long time of the series, I really thought he was involved in some aspect until he was really trying to get Hwajin to marry and be with Pei. I was like, this man is somehow involved because every time she'd ask about her parents' death, he would lie to her. Um,
Hmm.
the only, I think, episode that I would just not wasn't unnecessary, but that I didn't get a concrete answer to was there was a part where in the Astronomical Bureau we see that Huajin has like unraveled something and it's scribbled out what happened the night of Pei's family's massacre.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember being like there being a strong callback to that episode, to that scene.
Yeah, I don't think so. I can't quite remember, but I
Because I
don't
know that
think
there was a
so.
case with the Astronomical Bureau later on, but I don't remember them actually bringing that date back up.
Back. Yeah, no, I don't think they did. I don't think they did. Mm,
But maybe that's
yeah.
like the main flaw in all of this
Maybe.
then.
Yeah. But either way, I think it's still a good drama. I still really liked it. So I think we'll leave it there. I think we talked about, the characters, the cases, what we liked, what we didn't like. So we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. Please tell people where they can go and find you. What's your handles and everything?
Yeah, my handle is at the Cozy Comfort Club on TikTok and at Hello There Mona on YouTube. My YouTube basically has the same content though that I post on TikTok.
Yes. So I will make sure to add those to the episode description. Thank you so much for joining me. This is it. This is the end of this episode. So this has been another episode of the Tea and Soju podcast, and we shall catch you in the next one. Bye.